Derek Thompson's a pretty cool guy. I hate having him as a colleague sometimes. It's hard to follow that. The thing he shared with us, though, about Steve Jobs, about the nature, the DNA of innovation, brilliant people, or Astro Teller and the Loon Project, big moonshots that are out there. Another of our contemporaries at the Atlantic we work with a lot was Walter Isaacson, who's just written the book on Da Vinci, had written about Einstein, had written about Ben Franklin and Steve Jobs. And I guess my question is, are you, in what you all do in both financing innovation, rewarding great innovation, incubating innovation, are you trying to sort of level out the fact that we're all not geniuses like Steve Jobs? Is that your job?
Yeah, a lot of what we do actually is make sure that Walter Isaacson's next book might be about a woman or a person of color. It's very much democratizing access to who gets to innovate.
But I guess the question I have is a Steve Jobs cultivated, or is a Steve Jobs born the way he is? Is it Da Vinci, who, I'm midway through this very heavy, thick book, looked at himself as a failure who never finished anything? He himself didn't look at himself as a profoundly consequential personality or individual. And so I think one of the interesting questions we have, and what all of you are doing, is whether or not you're able to shape and sculpt genius or shape and sculpt consequence that's separate from what I think Derek just may have talked about and what Astro Teller and Steve Jobs may have come prepackaged with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think that you can create creators, but I do think that you can spot people who have brilliance and some of the other DNA components that are really essential for success in these areas, like resilience, and then you can give them what they need so that they can move forward. Because if you think about it, very, very rarely do people have the opportunity to just work on that thing, right? Many of the entrepreneurs we support are coming from backgrounds where, if we didn't exist, they wouldn't have the parents' basement they can live in, they wouldn't have access to friends and family around. And they just, they relish having sort of that time to just think and do.
Jen?
I mean, absolutely. You can't cultivate them, but you certainly can build teams around them and put money around them and put resources around them to sort of help them sort of grow that idea and become stronger at what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, let me ask you a question. You're funded by the Commonwealth of Virginia,
We are.
Right? And so what I've always wanted to ask is a person who runs a fund that a state has is how are you, I guess, Brezhnev's Russia probably wanted to have an investment and innovation fund, but probably it was driven by other things. So if you're working for a state government, how do you make sure that it's not state government decisions that control what you do, but it's rather smart ideas, genuine innovation, not affected by who's somebody's cousin?
So we're lucky in that we're not actually a state agency. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and so we literally sort of receive the funding every year. And when our companies exit, we put it back in, and we stay hands away, arm's length away from the state, from the governor, from the legislative, just so that there's no influence at all in sort of what we invest in.
Have you had any big winners?
We've had some big winners, yeah. So we've been doing this for 14 years. We've got 183 companies between CIT GAP funds, which is tech, and energy and life sciences, and then also a cybersecurity accelerator, Mach 37, where we're taking ideas from across the world.
So what's the story you're most proud of?
So I think what I'm most proud of is the ability to attract other capital. So, not so much the exits, but the fact that we've put out about $25 million and we've brought in about $700 million from VCs, from angel investors, any of the big names you can think of, brought that money into the Commonwealth, and not just Northern Virginia, but to bring some of these VCs into Abingdon, Virginia, sort of just in the middle of sort of nowhere, where you don't have an angel community, but you're able to get a VC to fly to DC and then drive 7 hours or 6 hours to a company they funded.
Right. And Matt,
cool.
Matt, you're doing this in a different way. You're basically saying, hey, innovators out in the world, we'll give you a lot of money and a lot of spotlight if you come up with something on your own in the Learning Prize. Right. Take us down that path for a minute. Tell those folks what you do.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people just need to be asked to do something. Charles Lindbergh won a prize for flying across the Atlantic Ocean. Everybody thought the great aviators of the day were going to win. He was a 25-year-old mail clerk, from St. Louis. and won because he was daring enough. Nobody thought he would do it, and he cut off the edges of his map to make his plane as light as possible. The guy who solved the longitude question was a clockmaker, John Harrison, and everybody thought the great astronomers of the day were going to win. So XPRIZE is dedicated to the idea that if you organize and incentivize competition and you put up a decent enough prize purse, the prize I'm doing is the Global Learning XPRIZE, it's sponsored by Elon Musk, $15 million, you're going to attract a lot of interesting people around the world to try to solve a challenge. But people will tell you, yeah, the money is great, but they're doing it because they want to be part of something bigger. They want to have something that is an organizing principle that allows them to focus like a laser beam on a problem. We did an oceans cleanup XPRIZE during the BP oil spill, and the challenge was develop technology that separates oil from water. The winner has to do it 5x better than industry standards. Winner did 7x, and the fourth place team was a bunch of guys who owned a tattoo parlor in Las Vegas, and they did 3x better than the industry standard. And these guys had studied some engineering, and they were really excited about it, and they drew some stuff on the back of a napkin, and they entered, and they got fourth prize, and they won some money. So these people are out there all over the world, and the internet allows us to tap into that untapped.
And what is the problem the Learning Prize is trying to solve?
So the problem the Learning Prize has just been unsolvable for generations, which is you've got about 75 million kids who can't get to school, but then the dramatic number is 250 to 300 million kids who go to school for years, and they leave without ever having learned to read or write a word. So can you develop technology that's so intuitive, so inferential, so dynamic that I give you this and I walk away? And without the aid of a literate adult or a teacher, you then begin to teach yourself how to read, write, and do basic math. And we're trying to usher in a future where that day comes when I hand you this, and as you matriculate through your first 12 years or so, that is your mentor and your friend, and it reads to you.
So no worries about teachers' unions, no worries about brick and mortar, no worries about...
Well, it's not to supplant that, but it's to supplement it in a way that's profoundly different, and it gives learning into the hands of the child. Because when you go to many parts of the world, it's not working. And to do the same thing over and over again is insane.
So I want to jump to Kate in a minute, but I know you've given 5 prizes. You've just awarded $1 million to 5 different players. One of them is Carnegie Mellon. I was reading about this really fascinating algorithmic kind of interactive thing that you do to teach this. And you're going to go test these in Tanzania.
Right.
Why not go test them in Alabama?
Well, there's no ambient noise. Nobody has anything else. It's just going to be the tablet. So it's a competition, and it's got to be fair and equitable. So did this application, was this the thing that brought kids from here to here?
And Tanzania has a lot of smartphones.
A lot of smartphones, but in the places where we're going, there are few and far between. And so in 3 weeks, we've been working on this for 4 years now. In 3 weeks, we give 4,000 tablets with those 5 teams' applications to 4,000 kids.
And finally, how do you know whether you've succeeded? I mean, so many of I often wonder, are we overhyping these innovation projects? How do you know when you've just failed? And is that knowledge worthwhile?
It is worthwhile, and we may well fail. It may not work. We baseline the kids. 90% of the 4,000 kids can't recognize a letter in Swahili. The applications are in Swahili, so we'll endline them. And it may turn out that Sugat Mitra, Nicholas Negroponte, and others who have looked at this, maybe we're wrong, and kids can't do this, and maybe it's a waste of time. And if it is, Elon Musk gets his money back, and no harm, no foul. But I think that the results will be different. I think that kids will be able to do this, and if they can do it, I think it's a big deal. I think the world will look at it.
Kate, you recently had a robotics, exploration innovation center. She had little robots there and people that were part of this, and very diverse set of innovators. So your notion on inclusive innovation was very clear to me in this. And I've become obsessed with this one company, Traxel. The Atlantic did an event on educational outreach into sort of rural communities and why there are some communities in the United States that were just not, it was affecting sort of the exposure that students were having to broadband and the kinds of new modern teaching methods. So Traxel is this company that I saw, I think incubated out of Halcyon House, that essentially lays a very cheap, thin piece of fiber in the paint.
It's thin, it's not cheap.
I'm sorry, it's what? Oh, it's, okay. Yeah, it's relatively inexpensive. It lays it into the paint of the road. And so without digging ditches, without laying, they put in wires or a kind of mesh net through the road, and it looks practically indestructible. And so you can go into rural parts of Ohio or Virginia or West Virginia, and they're doing a case in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I was fascinated by this, that it came out of the Halcyon. I mean, it was the first thing I knew from you guys that had been exported, but you were going to share other things that you've helped export.
Yeah, and I mean, Traxel's an excellent example, right? It's just starting with, we support creative people who are trying to solve some of these huge, complex 21st century problems. And they started with the problem of, how do we equalize access to broadband and to internet? And I think this is a really brilliant solution. As you mentioned, they've now spread the idea to making it a web so that if one of these lines gets cut, as these things do, that it won't go down. But we've got people using tech and artificial intelligence to solve all sorts of problems that you might not anticipate at first blush. Like 2 of our fellows are using artificial intelligence, one to do a better job of connecting community with police so that police reports are captured and community relations are improved. And another one is using AI to work with school kids who've had a traumatic incident but may not know how to handle that or have the resources to do so, and they can get an immediate text response via artificial intelligence that then directs them to an actual adult therapist if needed. And then we have others that are using, to come immediately to mind, vibrating technology. One of them is using it to get rid of phantom limb pain in amputees and veterans without having to turn to opiates, which of course is a really important innovation. It works better than opiates. Opiates just sort of dull the pain and make people feel numb, but this actually gets rid of the feeling. Another one also using vibrating technology to make it so that people don't feel motion sickness. And a side effect of that, and perhaps the most profitable part of this technology, is that 40% of the people that use augmented reality feel extremely nauseous. And this can also be used to make sure that everyone can use augmented reality. So really, if you look at it across the board, our fellows are really doing all kinds of things to equalize access in this 21st century world to all of these amazing technologies that can be used for social good.
One of the themes I've listened to all morning, I've been fascinated by a lot of the sessions, but I'm wondering, is there a tension between part of what we're discussing today, which is technological innovation, all the neat things that are possible that we can do because we can do them. Science is taking us and opening up new doors, but sometimes that can be devoid of worrying about how society is organized, whether jobs are impacted, who's left behind. And a lot of you are involved in trying to fix social problems. And I'm wondering whether there's an unnatural tension between those. Are we trying to sort of get over the guilt of technological innovation that's going to displace people, or are you trying to be a remedy to technological innovation that's taking a certain? I mean, do you get that question, and do you feel it, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this exact thing earlier. I mean, it's, the technology, there is this divide. The technology does divide us every day, but paradoxically, it's the same thing that kind of can bring us together. So whether it's reaching kids in schools or out of schools or ways to deliver healthcare better, that, we're at the 1 second mark of understanding a lot of this stuff. And I think, right now, in some ways, it's catch up for the people who are left far behind, which is. But
in the world you run in, Elon Musk is worried about AI.
Yep.
10 years ago, Bill Joy was saying, beware nanotechnology, beware what you can do with biomeds and, genetic transformations. Right. So are we thinking about that now? Jen, when you're out there investing in places and somebody comes up and said, hey, I can create a designer baby, and we can clone, clone kids that are ultra smart. I mean, I don't know what comes your way when you're out there looking at those things, but are these part of your scene?
I mean, we see so many things. I had someone sit next to me and pull out what looked very much like a human head with skin that felt like human skin, and the whole point of it was like, this is now going to be a receptionist. This is going to be the person that takes you on tours. This is going to be the person who's taking your Starbucks order. If we even have someone who does that, quite forward. This is a robot. And you can't help but think about all the people that have these jobs now, and how do we take such a huge population and make them unemployed?
So do you invest anyway?
And sometimes I do, right? It's about 2 things. One, creating a different type of job, and also getting a return on our investment. But certainly we think a lot about how to educate our workforce, especially as CIT does, and we especially think about it in rural communities in Virginia.
I know you think about this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the robotics event that you came to was the result of a robotics report that we did with AAAS, and that was after 18 months of convening people from, Carnegie Mellon and Johns Hopkins and all of these great places where they think about this all the time. And they had some very distinct recommendations. And, I can break it down into a couple of tiny nuggets, right? One is that the speed of technology means that government cannot keep up, right? In terms of creating laws that manage for this stuff, there's just this huge gap, and that is a continual problem. And right now, I would posit that we don't have the government or corporations stepping up to take responsibility for that gap. And we need to figure out how they can work together to do that, because otherwise we are going to have disastrous consequences, because everyone sees this looming jobs frontier, and everyone just goes, well, I don't know what I'm going to do about it, right? So, there's that. There's also this very distinct problem of democratization of creation. And there's a great article in the Current Atlantic about Google Glass and why it failed, right? I'd really suggest you read it because it's a really great lesson for everyone. They didn't run it by non-engineers, right? They only ran it by a very small segment of the population. And when you're creating robots and you're not involving everyone of all demographics, you're creating a system that is completely going to recreate the imbalance that exists today. If you think about the hole that we're digging out of with healthcare now, the fact that many of our pill prescriptions are not actually moderated correctly for women, or that suggestions around diabetes are not really calibrated for African Americans. We're just going to create that, but on a massive scale, if we're not involving everyone.
Let me just ask you before I go to the audience, if there were, to think of the DNA of innovation, the clusters that you're all trying to sort of build up, if there was one needle that you needed pushed or moved that would help you do your job much better, to help you achieve the results you want to achieve, what would be that one thing, Jen?
Good question. More people to look at things. We see a lot of technology and have a great depth of technology. But there's a lot of things that I see, especially in AI, that I can sit down across the table from someone and have no clue sort of what they're talking about, and it's almost at a level where they're walking a fine line of being crazy or genius, and it takes a long time to figure out sort of which one they are, and you just spend a lot of time with them to figure that out.
Fascinating, candid answer. Thank you. Matt?
I'd say investment in places like Sub-Saharan Africa. When we started this XPRIZE, we had 700 teams from 55 countries. Many of the teams in Sub-Saharan Africa dropped out because they couldn't afford to go on for 2 years to develop the software. But there's so much genius that resides in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam and other places. And just with a little bit of funding, a little bit of spotlight, these kids can produce what the Carnegie Mellon kids produced very easily. And that genius is there. That digital generation of young people in universities around the world, they're all the same. They just need that kind of extra push. And if they had that, I think you'd see some
fascinating. Kate?
And the only area of the world where you can still get 20x returns.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Again, just talking about the ecosystem and what we can collectively do to make it not just more fair, but like better for everyone in terms of if we're providing opportunity to everyone, then we're going to see innovations that we haven't seen before, and people will actually get better return on investment because they're investing in things that maybe they overlooked before. I would say that 5% of VC money is going to women, 1% is going to minorities. Even if we double that in the next decade, we've moved the needle this much. So I just really, and I think this takes everyone's thought, particularly the trillions of dollars that go into philanthropic and impact investing, could do a lot to fill this hole, but it needs to be everyone working together.
Fascinating. Let me take at least one question. Yes, right here. Greetings again. Nathaniel, right?
Yes.
There you go.
So, by the way, if you guys want to come and find the next, innovators, come out to Northern Virginia Community College. We have the next PayPal model.
That's for Jen.
So,
there we go.
But my question is, do you think the stem of the problem, do you think like the core problem right now is the current higher education system, and how for the job placement problem, they aren't willing to innovate, and not just on there's the higher education problem, but there's also the jobs where they are still saying that, we require you to have a bachelor's degree or this or that. So someone in rural America, might say, oh, I might not be able to go to these colleges, but they can still learn by utilizing Udacity and things like that, but they don't trust that it will get them that job.
Thank you. As you answer, we'll just do a quick run through all of you, lightning round. As you answer, Nathaniel, I'm really interested in whether the structures and institutions that we have to process and train talent in this country leave too much talent on the table, leave too much talent in the corner, to kind of piggyback on Nathaniel's question. So, Jen?
So I think we're seeing, in Virginia, as you look at a campus like UVA-Wise, which is, very rural Virginia, you're starting to see a cybersecurity workforce development program. So really trying to take people and put them in cybersecurity jobs elsewhere, but also in Wise, so we can start developing that skill there.
Matt?
Yeah, I think you'll see those online learning platforms getting better and better and better all the time. It's going to reach more people, I think, more quickly than we realize now.
Nathaniel, I agree with everything you said. I think that the academic institutions that are the next bubble, there's no way that we can continue, and they just haven't been forced to change enough yet. They're too expensive, they're not responsive enough to the rapidity of change, and yeah, I totally predict massive disruption.
Well, I look forward to the
hopefully before I have to
that
pay
all
for my
of you
kids'
will
college.
bring in this area. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Kate Goodall with Halcyon, Matt Keller with the Global Learning XPRIZE, and Jennifer O'Daniel with the CIT Gap Fund. Thank you so much.